Hello everyone. I hope you're all bearing up well within the reality we find ourselves in now. Today we'll be reflecting briefly on Psalm 2. We're all experiencing upheaval, whether that's struggling to buy basic food staples, suddenly finding ourselves with lots of time or indeed children on our hands, or just the more fundamental disorientation of social distancing and isolation. Psalm 2 begins with an image of great upheaval as well, but it's of a different kind. It's an upheaval for all the nations of the earth as they seek to oppose God. They see God as someone who shackles them and so prevents them from living as they wish. I think that's a pretty prevalent sentiment throughout society today, that God is an oppressor who stops us from having fun. Like that infamous slogan on the bus from a few years back, that there probably is no God. So stop worrying and enjoy your life. But if the last few days have taught us anything, they have taught us of our physical fragility, the limits of our knowledge, and unfortunately the ease with which fear tips us into selfishness. There have also been moments of heartwarming community spirit, but I think it's still fair to say that the presence of this virus exposes our existential need for something truly solid and ultimately meaningful. But the psalmist seems to be asking a genuine question when he begins the psalm with the words, "Why do the nations conspire or rage against God?" Because the psalmist doesn't see God as an oppressor. And I think we see why the psalmist thinks this in God's response to the raging of the nations. It is to install his king, his anointed one, on his holy mountain. Now, for Israel, this would have referred to their king. But the Psalms also point forward as prophetic of what is to come. Because being the Lord's anointed is where we get the term Messiah, which is translated in Greek as Christ. And so we see in the New Testament, in both Hebrews and in Acts, Psalm 2 being quoted in reference to the identity of Jesus Christ. Far from being the slave-driving master that the nations accuse God of being, we see in Jesus, the Lord's anointed, just what the rule of God looks like. Because for Jesus, being installed on God's holy hill did not look like ordering armies to ride out to kill from on high, but rather to be crucified on a Roman cross in order that he might take the punishment that brought us peace. In the last verse of this psalm, in verse 12, we see the words, "Kiss the Son." Now, within the ancient Near East context of the Old Testament, that would have been a kiss of submission to the conquering king. But our king, Jesus, is different. He received the betrayer's kiss of Judas in order that he might bear the brokenness of the world on the cross. So submission to the lordship of Jesus, then, is to recognize our need for him, receive his gift of forgiveness, and to move forward into the rest of life, trusting that he knows best and is faithful. Coming to Jesus, the servant king who chooses to die for us, is the answer to the world's upheavals in every age. And so here in Psalm 2 we see the call to follow God as the only real route to life and indeed to freedom, because this is the God who created us. He knows what we actually need, rather than what we think we might need. But more than this, that this God is the only true refuge from the things we simply cannot control. As the psalm concludes, "Blessed are all who take refuge in him." That is my prayer for us today.